Welcome, beautiful people of all ages, shapes, and colors, to another episode of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, where we encourage you to stick to the basics. I'm one of your co-hosts, TV, aka TV on basketball, alongside my co-host Jay, aka the Knockdown Jay. How's it going, my guy?
It's going good, man. We missed last week because we had a little bit of extracurricular stuff taking place off camera. But today we were back locked in. We are hopping on a latest NBA trend. We're talking about NBA injuries. We're back to the top five ratings that we were doing the week prior. And TV, we also have a little bit of disappointing news ourselves as we go to this episode.
Yeah, I mean, like we mentioned in the last episode, we lost like the first 2 months of the month. Like each of us took like one L each. So we have to do this. If you for the video watchers, this is what we have to do. Just as a preview, by the way, we could eat stuff like rotten egg, dead fish, dirty dishwasher. Like we have a bunch of stuff here, but this is gonna be our punishment because I lost February, Jay lost January, and we need to do our little punishment. So this is gonna be it. And if you were following with the Daily NBA Picks Challenge, Jay has the lead in both too now.
I'm fine.
So I might be in for a rude awakening for these like last week.
We have a very special forfeit for the overall loser of the 2024 Daily Picks Challenge. That will be totally fun to work towards, and that's why the rest of this month and the month of April is going to be super important, because as we come down home stretch, we are just as basketball teams are running out of time to make their playoff push, we are both running out of time to avoid what might be the scariest thing we've done on pod.
It's going to be absolutely devastating if any of us have to do this. It's going to be absolutely devastating. Yeah, be in tune for that. And by the way, if whoever loses this, and if they end up losing April as well, they have to do another punishment too. So that's just to keep put under that. So it's going to be a crazy episode. Again, we got that. Of course, we got the draft. Today we're doing the 2007 draft class. And then we end up the quiz with this beautiful pack of cards. We're going to be looking through the next 10. So yeah, a lot of great things in this episode. Is going to be action-packed. You don't want to miss it. But before we get into it, we do have to plug our socials. Make sure to follow our personal socials. That could be found in the description down below, at TV on Basketball, at The Routine Jumper. Those could be found in the description of the pod, the YouTube, all that good stuff. In terms of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, though, follow us on TikTok and Instagram for the best daily NBA content. If you're watching on YouTube, remember to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you will not miss an episode. If you're supporting us on any of the podcast networks, Spotify, Apple, leave a review, subscribe. We really do appreciate all the support you guys give. Jay, a lot of stuff to do on this pod today. Are you ready to get right into it?
Yeah, I feel like we're going to be able to rapid fire through a good amount, but we do have a very jam-packed episode today.
We do.
Probably should get started.
We're going to start off with, honestly, not even like a current NBA topic. We could say it's kind of current, because if you haven't been on social media these last like 2 or 3 weeks, then, I mean, if you're on social media, like more than likely, so you definitely know about the trend. Hashtag we are done with the 90s. And just a little background of what's happening. Current NBA fans, people like me and Jay, even people younger than us, are finally replaying the tapes. We're like, what is this glorious 90s and 80s basketball these old heads are trying to tell us? Then they look back and they're like, what? They can't dribble with their left hand? This defense that they say like is all elite? They're just knocking people over for no reason? We're done with the 90s. People were saying that Jordan didn't have a left hand. It's gotten out of hand. OGs are trying to defend themselves each and every day. But what does this mean for us? We're guys who have been watching basketball for well over a decade now. We've been following the NBA for as long as we can remember. Jay, I'm going to throw this over to you. With this whole discussion around the 90s and them not playing as great of basketball, this era solos the entire 90s. That's what everyone's saying right now. Are we done with the 90s?
I'm not done with it, man. That can't be how we address this. I understand that people, I think they're more so trying to defy the line between comparing eras, right? I think the issue that we've always had when it comes to the comparison between eras is we always say, oh, well, if you drop such and such into this
Yeah.
era and you flip things around, what would it look like? Or if we go back to the guys from the 90s and they say, what if you played now? Oh, I'd average 50, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think now we've come to a point where that line has become a lot more blurred because I think that as easy as people may think it is to play in today's game from an offensive standpoint, right? And the way that they're able to operate now compared to back then, I think others would say the skill gap created by today's game brought back to the 90s would be its own version of wizardry in its own right. So I think now it's not just as simple to say I will drop XYZ player into a given era and they will operate differently because it's physicality versus finesse. I think these players could bring the finesse aspect of how they play and thrive in an environment where there's a lot more chaos back in the 90s, as opposed to the players from the 90s can bring the physicality they played with in today's era, and it makes them much more dangerous because you're not able to be touched up on and things like that nearly as much defensive aspect. So no, we're not done with the 90s. We still respect, the elder statesmen of the game and all that thing like that. And I'm still, Team Jordan guy and all that stuff like that. I just think that I just feel like we're gonna have to start having a lot more real nuanced conversations about ball as opposed to just like, oh, you can just start moving people from era to era and that'll tell the tale.
Yeah, and I like that point you brought up. I think this all stemmed up. Well, first this stems off LeBron versus Jordan. Let's be honest, everything stems off
Of
LeBron versus
course.
Jordan, and it's like, oh, Jordan playing here, he would average 50. Oh, LeBron playing there, he's gonna average 50. You know who started this? As much as the OGs are trying to defend it, and again, I'm gonna say this right now, we are not done with the 90s. We still again we respect the people that like who helped develop this game, who helped bring the game to what it is today.
Yeah.
But you OGs, you started this. You are the ones who were saying, "Oh, this league is soft." You think like Gary Payton would absolutely clamp you guys up in this day and age,
True.
this and that, here and that. What this is the natural progression of the sport. I feel like every other sport, we don't end up comparing eras to the extent we do in basketball. Every other sport,
TD's
we
preaching.
we don't do this because because people understand it's two different games. It's impossible to compare each. When we look at the 90s, I had some like things that were like, a lot different from the 90s as they were today.
Okay.
Rules were super different. You could not anytime the ball was over your hand, you could not put the ball underneath your hand because they would call a travel carry every single second. Think of the way that players back then were taught basketball. Attack the rim, go for the easy basket. No one was taught the long range shooting. When Reggie Miller was in the league, that was considered the wizardry back then. And Reggie Miller was not like shooting nearly the volume of threes that Steph Curry did. That game was just completely different. Sure, the skill gap is the skill gap massive. Yes, it's because of the way people were brought up in today's game compared to the previous era. In the previous era, they had tall guys who could not do anything on the basketball court. They were there to be tall and knock people over. I'm looking at you, Rick Mahorn. I'm looking at you, Kurt Rambis. There were places in the league for that because you needed to have that sort of physicality and defensive prowess in order to compete there because a lot of things were coming into the paint and people were going to be as physical as possible. Now you're going to need to know like how to break your opponent off the dribble. You cannot be a four in this league without being able to have a decent three ball. It's just the game is just completely different. And again, to reiterate the point, I think every other sport kind of acknowledges this and understands that there's a progression to sport and it's just going to continue to get better and better because right now we have our Stephs, we have our LeBrons. Who knows, in the next 20, 30 years we might have a league full of Wembies. Who really knows what's going to happen in 20 to 30 years. So I just think it's just going to be the natural progression of the sport, and it's unfair to compare this to the 90s or even just going further back. People who are saying that the 50s and 60s were plumber eras, was like the plumber era of the NBA and stuff like that. It's hard to compare. It's just impossible to compare that sort of era to now. So I just think it's just the natural progression of the sport, and it's just something that I feel like we should all know that it's like this is just like something that it's just going to happen no matter what era it is. It's just going to continue to get better and better. And at some point in the next 20, 30 years, we're going to be the ones trying to defend our era when the other ones are like, oh, what about Victor Wembanyama? What about this person junior who's averaging like 30, 10, and 10? Like it's going to continue to happen every single era. I think it's just best if we just see for what it is and just appreciate the people who were dominant in that era that we've seen like in the past.
I mean, I definitely agree with you, and I think the other thing about it is you hit it right on the head in saying in terms of saying who kind of sparked this whole conversation. Because here's the most intelligent thing that you have to be able to point out is on a day-to-day basis in 2024, NBA basketball is broken down and analyzed at a volume that has never been seen before, right? All they were able to do was pull back the tape. And that's something that for the longest it wasn't something that was as attainable as how we are able to retain highlight culture and things of that nature in today's game. But now that the tapes have unsurfaced, now that people have been willing to put in the work to do the digging, all you've done is now brought what would have taken place back then to an era where it is hyper diagnosed and dissected in a way that we do now. See, because that's the thing. If they had social media to the extent that we have it now back then, a lot of those same viewpoints we're sharing now, those are possible talking points back then. But social media was not a thing, was not a part of the overall not just internet culture, but overall news package culture, right? We were built off the sports center aspect of only seeing, the bigger, the best plays. Now we've come to a time in basketball where every play is hyper analyzed. Every game is hyper detailed, right? Mm-hmm. So I think the main thing is that the older generation is getting a taste of what current players deal with from an analytics standpoint and from an analysis standpoint in a way that they didn't have to experience back in the day. And it does even the playing field, despite the fact that those guys aren't currently playing. So it puts them in a bad spot because they can only defend themselves against the tape that's already out.
Yeah, 100%. And again, it's like we think we're hyper analytic now. Imagine like what it's gonna be like.
Oh my gosh! As we get
AI
like
technology and
yeah, I was gonna say as we get better at like tracking data and stuff, like it's gonna get ridiculous. Like I mean, there's a lot of really great stat nerd websites as it is. You know what I mean? As right now, but I mean down the line, dude. I mean, we're gonna know how long it takes for a guy to get out the tunnel. Like eventually,
it's crazy.
It's getting crazy.
Yeah, and look, and when you look at it, of course, there's going to be some players, that you can just drop in each era, just because like people like Michael Jordan, Reggie, Hakeem. Like, there's going to be like players where you're going to be able to be like, okay, you see how great they are. Their skills can translate to here. NBA players, there's going to be some players where they fit much better in the '90s, but at the end of the day, those few are far in between. Like those are some like few and far between, and it's good to like understand, especially when you talk about the greatest player of all time conversations, the best players in NBA history sort of conversation, to see how dominant they were against their era. You know what I mean? Like it's like you can't compare to like the MJ competition as to is now. You're not able to compare LeBron's competition as to like as it is like 30 years ago. So understanding the greatest conversation, maybe you could say, of course, you could generally say basketball players are just better now. But in terms of greatest conversations, comparing eras and trying to like compare competition, I just don't think it's fair for either player, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I completely agree.
But yeah, let us know what you guys think down below. Are we done with the '90s? I don't think so. There's a lot to discuss here, especially when it comes to, especially like this whole like basically just like an OG conversation versus like new guys. It's hilarious. Please check out a bunch of videos on TikTok. It's been great. And if you want like a full breakdown of it, I highly recommend the Jimmy Roller video that released like last week. So if you want to see like a complete breakdown, even like in-game footage comparisons, stuff like that, check him out. That was a great video as well. But moving on, let's move away from the '90s. We're done with the '90s for now. We're done with the '90s for now. Let's move on to what's going on in the NBA today. And man, you could tell it's the end of the season because guys are going down like timber. Because It's funny how I say Timber because a bunch of these guys are like a bunch of the big men are especially going down. The NBA and especially like some of its top teams, they're limping into the playoffs sort of. This is the current injury report, just of like no players that's happening in the league right now. Embiid, no timeline to return. He returned to practice this week, but still no timeline to return. Karl-Anthony Towns, they say they hope he's ready for the first or second week of April. No timeline. Julius Randle, no timeline. Alperen Sengun out for the season, so that destroys any playing chances for the Houston Rockets. Russell Westbrook out for 4 weeks. Scotty Barnes out for the season. Trae Young basically out for the season. Ben Simmons out for the season. These are just a few names, and you can just keep going down the list. Everyone, and especially a lot of the playoff teams, some key players are going down. It sucks right now, but Jay, if you had to pick like one team that was going to be most affected by the injuries going into the playoffs, going into this postseason, who would it be?
I had to pick one team. Man, it's got to be Philly, right?
God,
Embiid
yeah,
being hurt has put them in a really tough spot where this was a team that we were talking about as being right up there with like the Bucks as like the second and third best teams in the Eastern Conference behind the Celtics and having real championship equity with Joel Embiid on the floor. And now this is a team that is literally only a half a game ahead of the Pacers and a game ahead of the Miami Heat before they can end up like firmly in the play-in tournament. From top three, top four to the play-in. Shout out to my Chicago Bulls who have been fighting, but the Philadelphia 76ers should not be in the same discussion as the Chicago Bulls right now. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, I don't
yeah,
think that that's from a talent perspective, from a roster building standpoint, like Joel Embiid being hurt, leading to them being in a conversation where we're talking about them amongst the Bulls, the Hawks, and I'll say to a lesser degree the Indiana Pacers. And I'll throw the Miami Heat in there too, but I think everybody kind of feels like Miami Heat just need to get to the postseason, and we just know what kind of timing they're
yeah,
on. But like the Pacers, Bulls, and Hawks, we kind of all view them as like automatic first round exits, right? No matter who they
yeah.
kind of end up going up against if they come out of the play-in tournament. But Philly has way higher expectations than that for this season. Yet this is
Yeah.
the company they're in. So I think it has to be Joel because it signifies easily the biggest fall from grace in the NBA.
Yeah. Who knew losing an MVP caliber player, a guy who looked like he was going to be like a back-to-back MVP before the injury goes down, and that's what happens. I mean, Tyrese Maxey is doing his damn best. He's probably still going to
Yeah.
win Most Improved Player, but it's just when you're missing that sort of talent, and then your team is just not as deep as it used to be, and you're facing against a lot of the East teams who are just currently getting better, it's just hard to really compete, and that's why they're hanging on to the edge of a guaranteed playoff spot. So yeah, that's definitely tough. I have to agree with you with the 76ers for sure. Especially now because they're even like facing even more injuries because Tobias Harris is dealing with a high ankle sprain and who knows
Yeah.
how much time he's gonna be missing. So yeah, near the end of the season, it's been a tough ending for the Philadelphia 76ers. But I do want to shout out the Timberwolves here because this Karl Anthony Towns injury, it's a torn meniscus, is just brutal, especially with how things were looking so good for the Minnesota Timberwolves like up to this point. The fact that they had to like lose Karl Anthony Towns, sure. I mean, luckily they're still winning. They're still winning right now. Anthony Edwards is really backpacking his team right now. But I do think that the Karl Anthony Towns injury is just really unfortunate because the Timberwolves finally figured it out with this two big man lineup, having him be like this, you know, finding his place in the defensive scheme, him like going back to all-star, all NBA level numbers, and him like working like perfectly with like Rudy Gobert in that front court alongside Anthony Edwards. It felt like everything was finally going right for the Timberwolves, and then that one injury, and it just feels like we're not gonna be able to see what this full team is gonna at least at full strength going into the playoffs. How this team's gonna play. Now the flip side to this, some people are gonna be like, oh, maybe this is a chance to see that Karl Anthony Towns is not the best fit for this team. But I digress. Um, I think that it just like you just want to see this full Timberwolves team in action, especially like them like still fighting for the number 1 seed. But I just think that Karl-Anthony Towns' injury sucks, especially because he was finally like rebuilding a reputation that was kind of tarnished over the last couple of years.
I mean, I think with the Karl-Anthony Towns thing, the main point that you make that has to be addressed is we need to see this team at full strength, specifically in the playoffs. They need to be able to make a run. Like, I hate to be the guy that keeps bringing their financial situation up on the podcast because it's happened about 3 or 4 times, but it cannot be understated that they are going into an offseason with a team, mind you, that Alex Rodriguez and those guys have been paying for on layaway. So this is not a team that is going to just go into the second apron potentially at some point next season if they're not a championship caliber team. If they're not a team that can make a run to at least the Western Conference Finals, there's going to be real questions around the expenses of this team and whether or not paying this top dollar specifically for 3 bigs, if you look at Rudy Gobert, Naz Reid, and Karl-Anthony Towns, if that's something that's going to be truly sustainable, or if it even should be truly sustainable, if they are just another first round bounce out waiting to happen, right? So I think that Karl-Anthony Towns' presence is very important to get a good idea of that, because you do not want to go into another offseason saying, well, damn, what if we did have Cat? How far could we have went? Because you need to already have that evaluation, because you can't go into another postseason having to guess that, because guess what? If you make it all the way to the postseason again with this roster as constructed, you're going to go into next summer as a second apron team. And that means a lot in terms of their overall finances, salary cap, and potential frozen picks down the line. There's a lot of different nuances from a, cap structure standpoint that take a hit by them not having their ducks in a row. This season, I said at the very beginning of the year that the Timberwolves were going to potentially be one of the best teams in the Western Conference. And what was my reasoning? Because they have to. They have to be. And so far, so good, right? They're right there, neck and neck, like you said beforehand, with the Thunder and the Nuggets fighting for the top seed in the Western Conference. And that's exactly what you want to add. That's exactly what you want to see for a team that's looking at their finances right now and wondering, like, yo, are we good enough?
It's the timing is horrible because, like you said, going to the playoffs season, you want to see this team at full strength, and the fact that Karl-Anthony Towns may not be available. Like, again, there's no timeline right now. There's no official timeline. So the fact that he's not going to be there and might not even be there for the start of the playoffs is it's definitely rough for the Minnesota Timberwolves. But they're still winning. They're still competing there for the top spot. Again, Anthony Edwards just going ballistic as of late. He is he is like bordering on top 10 player status right now. He is absolutely insane. By the way, before we move on, Thronk or dunk? Is a Thronk a dunk?
I think a Thronk is a dunk, bro. There's too many Sports Center top 10s that almost should have happened that still just deserve to be like considered as baptisms. You know what I mean? Yes, exactly, when Ja missed that dunk where he dang near cleared Kevin Love, that counts. Like, you know what I mean? Exactly, yeah. Jalen Johnson the other night, that man, I mean, don't get me wrong, he got it, but he got his. But like Jalen Johnson baptism the other day. Yeah. And Anthony Edwards over John Collins. That man said he had to give his shoes to John Collins after the game instead of giving them to a fan just off of strict apologies. Like that counts as like one of the dunks of the year. I don't care.
Yeah. And be the type of guy who's going to visit John Collins in the hospital to give him his shoes.
Come on, man. The man dislocated his finger to catch a body. If that's not a dunk, I don't know what is.
Right, yeah. I just want to get that through right away. But before we move off this like injury subject, do you think, and I think like, again, this whole like 65 game threshold that people are trying to meet, do you think that them playing more games than now, trying to like reach the 65 game threshold to still even just be eligible for these awards for all NBA and all that stuff? Do you think this has to do with the like, I wouldn't say like insane, but like more injuries it feels like at the end of the year than we've had in previous years? Because like I mentioned, we talked about Towns and Embiid. Randall's still on the shelf. Şengün went down with a scary injury. Westbrook, Scotty Barnes is out for the season. Trae Young, Ben Simmons, like a bunch of these like guys, like top guys for their teams, are like going down with injury. Do you think it's because do you think it has to do a little bit of like them not wanting to miss out on that 65 game threshold?
For me, I don't believe that's the case. I mean, they can speak for themselves, right, in terms of their individual motivations. But for example, Julius Randle, he was one of the top leaders in minutes played. He plays for Tom Thibodeau. Josh Hart just played all
Like
48 minutes
8
the other
minutes last
day.
night. Yeah, he did.
Like, what do we like? You see what I'm saying? Like same thing with no offense to the OG Anunoby who just got there. He was kind of already dealing with a little something before he first touched down in New York. He's a guy who missed significant time. He came out the gate and had like 120 something minutes through his first 4 games.
Yeah.
Like he plays for Tom Thibodeau. So a guy like Julius Randle, you understand that the more you're on the floor, the more the opportunity is, right? Alperen Şengün, that was a freak situation with Sabonis.
Yeah.
Let's really put it in perspective. Like that was a freakish situation with Sabonis. Trae Young, that's a little bit different. And if you actually look at Trae Young's injury, it's one of them that I don't even think you would consider to last 4 weeks under normal diagnosis. But you have to look at the state of their team. They're a team that is basically going to be riding the bottom of the play-in tournament, whether Trae Young plays or not, because it doesn't seem viable that the Brooklyn Nets are going to catch them.
Yeah.
So rushing Trae Young back does not necessarily change their fate because they're a full 8 games back of being in a secure top 6 seed. So anything else is considered being in the play-in tournament. Well, they're not getting up on 8 games to catch up on Philly, Indiana, or Miami. So they're going to be in the play-in tournament regardless. So Trae Young's fate doesn't change that. So although his injury has been labeled as much longer than maybe typically associated, I think that just makes sense considering the fact that why rush him back?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think a lot of these injuries, you do have to kind of play with a grain of salt when you look at the circumstances of them. The other thing that I think is really important is like, if the 65-game threshold didn't come in, what was going to be the other outset? Yeah. Because I think the other aspect of it is people are getting pissed now that players are getting injured because they're chasing the 65 games. But then you're pissed that the guys aren't even playing at least 60 games. So which one is it? You know what I'm saying? Unfortunately, there's no win-win in it. The only way that you can accomplish the quote-unquote, victory for both sides is if the season is shortened, because then it meets enough in the middle. But without the season being shorted, over the course of an 82 game season, there is always going to be more than enough time for guys to get hurt, and nobody chooses when that time is.
Exactly. I think you hit the nail on the head. A lot of these like injuries either happen a bit earlier on the line or just kind of unfortunate situations, like some freak accidents. Especially like the Scotty Barnes one, even just to think of that, because I think we mentioned like in the prediction episode that I said that the Raptors might make a play-in push, and then 2 days later Scotty got injured, which kind of derailed everything. But like that was kind of a freak accident too, where he's like his hand just completely like the ball like went through his hands, completely folded back, and that kind of was the end of Scotty Barnes' season. But yeah, a lot of these are just, some teams just being cautious because for the Raptors and for the Hawks, why would you rush your star player back when this season is not really meaning much? Şengün, you're at that point where you're like, you know what, maybe he can't come back in a couple weeks, but the Rockets are not catching the Lakers at the number 10 seed, so why try and go for it? Stuff like Embiid, Towns, and Randall, that just comes with the game sometimes. It's unfortunate these teams are missing like some of their top players, and especially at kind of a bad time. But injuries are going to happen. I think that the 65-game threshold is doing its job well. Let's see how it does in like a few years down the line. But I think so far it's doing its job. But yeah, I just think that the injuries happen, and it's just unfortunate that some of the top guys in the league had to like go through it right now.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's just all about a timing thing. If you're gonna play 82 games, it's bound to happen. You don't choose when. The longer you play, the more minutes you accumulate. Shout out to the Ironmen of the league that have been able to be relatively consistent, right? The Mikal Bridges of the world. The fact that Tyrese Maxey leads the league in minutes played this year. Jalen Brunson, who's missed time but has still been relatively consistent. Josh Hart, who's getting 48-minute games from freaking Tom Thibodeau and putting up triple-doubles.
The poor guys, I feel like in the last 2 weeks is averaging like 42, 43 minutes a game. I feel so bad for them.
Come on, man. I mean, cardio demons out here. Don't get me wrong. Josh Hart, at least he's being productive. But I think that's huge. I mean, the Ironman, I think the biggest thing is that, especially with the amount of talent and athleticism in the league right now, the Ironmen of the league who are playing 70 plus games a year, those are the guys that need to start really getting a lot more respect, because the durability aspect of being able to play in today's league, it's something that I feel like it's super underrated, unless we're talking about a guy like LeBron James or like a CP3, where we're talking about longevity. But what about your just ability to stay on the floor night in and night out and be available for your team? I think that does have to start carrying a little bit more merit to it. And especially when you look at the caliber of guys who are dropping like flies, it means those guys that are hanging around and still being able to be productive, their weight means a lot more. If you look around the season, Anthony Davis, oddly healthy in comparison to past seasons. Kevin Durant had a little bit of a shaky start to the season, has been much healthier than he's been in past seasons down the line. Kyrie Irving, significant hiccup, has come back and has played very well since being, back to being on the floor next to Luka Doncic. Had a game winner the other day, actually. One of the
Yeah.
craziest scoop shots I've ever seen ever from distance. Like, what the heck? But yeah, you give those guys a lot more credit, because the ability to stay on the floor, freak accident or not, it's one of those game changers when you talk about not only being able to, produce in a regular season, but, now in this case, being available for a potential postseason run, because some of these guys are going to maybe miss out on their chance.
100%. But yeah, it's unfortunate for a lot of these guys who had to like deal with a bunch of injuries, and at this time, hopefully they're back, especially for like people like Towns and Embiid, that they're able to come after their team come playoff time. But let us know down below what you guys think. Which team is being affected by injuries the most this year? And for those teams, do you think they can still make a deep? If you think they can make a deep playoff run, explain why down below. Jay, it's time to move on to the next top 5 list. And last week we talked about the all improved team. So the players that improved from like last season over to this season.
Yeah.
Today, we might have to be some negative Nancy's here, because we're going to talk about our top 5 most disappointed players. We were going to do an all NBA sort of team, but you know what? We're like, top 5 is probably like a best sort of format for this sort of subject. So we're going to do it that way. You know how it's going to go. Me and Jay are going to say our 5s each, and we're going to give our reasons down below, and then we're going to keep going down until our number 1.
Yeah.
Jay, how'd you feel about making the top 5, like this top 5?
Man, this disappointing list is a lot more conflicting than the guys that you looked at are the most improved or that part of your breakout list, because the optimism aspect of it gives you a lot more to look into. It's just how they've built up on their seasons prior and things of that nature. Looking at guys being disappointing, it's a lot more subjective. It's not just them producing less. It's how do you feel about watching them on the floor? Some of that stuff played into my decisions on the 5 guys I went with, almost as much as like their lack of production. Some of it is going to be, you're going to see stat decreases. That's part of them being disappointing. But some of it is, I've seen you play, and I just know that you're not playing up to snuff this year. And that's,
Yeah.
I think that's a completely different take than looking at guys who you've seen are getting better.
Yeah, 100%. Before we get to this top 5, really quick, is there someone that you were conflicted of putting on, but you ended up leaving off?
So somebody that actually changed in recent memory, from when we first originally were gonna be doing this to this week, so about actually a 2 week difference, is Zion Williamson. Ironically, was on this list for me about 2 weeks ago, before the Pelicans started kind of putting things together, and it's because I felt like he was a guy that I felt like wasn't getting heard from enough from this Pelicans team. And he is slowly but surely starting to really put his foot on the gas at a really good time. And the Pelicans, they're one of those teams that's giving the Clippers a run for their money in those top 4 spots. It cannot be under discussed enough. The Clippers better be careful, because this Russell Westbrook injury is meaning a lot to their overall productivity. And the Pelicans are right there. And Zion Williamson has a lot to do with that. But Zion, a couple of weeks ago, he was a guy that had me very worried about where he was going to go for the rest of this year, and had me extra worried about what he was going to look like as a postseason player for the first time.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Zion Williamson, I feel like, is one of those players who should be one of those high-profile superstars, but just hasn't been talked about at all. I mean, at all this year. Who knows? He might sneak into one of our other lists for another subject that we might do in a future episode. But yeah, I do like that choice. I think my play that just got left off is kind of the same reasoning as you.
Mm-hmm.
It's our boy DeAndre Ayton. Our boy DeAndre Ayton, for me, just kind of just missed out for this top 5, mostly because maybe I feel like maybe before the season when we were discussing like how good he could be, is maybe we're like labeling him as like the wrong player that he is, because he's been like a lot better defensively, especially these like last 2 months compared to his side with the Phoenix Suns, and now he's adding the offensive game with him. He's like averaging like 24 and like fifth or 13 over the last like 10 games or so for DeAndre Ayton. So I think we just have to kind of look like at his sort of role as someone who's like, sure, maybe like when you draft someone with the first overall pick, he's not like you expect like a superstar to come out of it. Maybe he's just someone who's gonna be maybe a 1 or 2 time All-Star borderline type guy, but he could still have a very, very successful career and be like a constant starter wherever he goes. I think he could be that guy. Some people might say, it's the end of the season, no one really cares, but I still think that his numbers, there's some validity to them, and I think that the Trailblazers do see him as the point guard, their center of their future, especially if they can hope for the improvements of players like Shaden Sharp, Scoot Henderson, Anthony Simons. I think that he would be like a good big man surrounding all of those like high level scorers.
So it's ironic that you mentioned him just because he was actually my number 5. He like just
Okay.
barely cracked the list for me,
Yeah.
but I think that's one of those again where I think it's more subjective. For me, it's about what I felt about him coming into this situation. Of course, he was a part of our jokes earlier on in the season talking about DeAndre Ayton and Ben Simmons as two guys who will be really intriguing to watch this season under their circumstances. And DeAndre Ayton in particular was a guy that I was actually a little bit more hype about than even Ben Simmons because I felt like this was a team where he was going to be able to thrive as a quote unquote older center, not necessarily old, but a older center that could operate as a number 1 option next to a young point guard in Scoot Henderson and act as a pick and roll lob threat, kind of a la like James Harden, Clint Capella-esque, where if you just have a very on point diming passer like a Scoot Henderson, who I wouldn't say is a better passer or on par passer than with James Harden, but a very prolific passer nonetheless, operating in the pick and roll with a guy like DeAndre Ayton. I thought that would be a really good way to unlock both of their games. And then you look at the fact that they would have floor spacing with guys like Malcolm Brogdon, Jeremy Grant, Anthony Simons. It just seemed like a really good opportunity for him. And he hasn't been able to make the most of it. In TV, one of the things that I think is the most disappointing, DeAndre Ayton has never been necessarily a free throw merchant, but 1.5 free throw attempts per game as a guy who came into this season calling himself dominating, and he's not even creating contact on a level where he's getting to the free throw line. Like before this month, he had like significant stretches where he would go 4, 5, 7 even games straight without attempting a single free throw, bro. Like that does not scream dominating to me. And I think the more disappointing part to me, if anything, is we were talking about how significant of a 1-2 punch this guy could be next to Robert Williams III if he were healthy. But I think that with Robert Williams being injured, the center minutes should have opened up more. But instead, it feels as though it didn't really change anything for DeAndre Ayton at all. And then let's not even get started defensively. I felt Tamari Kamara on that same team more from a defensive aspect than I felt DeAndre Ayton all season. And that's just not the way that I expected this year to go for him. So I think me personally, he ended up cracking my top 5 just on that 5th level because of the fact that I think the expectations we were talking about when it came to him, especially when you consider his new situation, you just expected a lot more.
Yeah, I was there too. Like again, he was on my top 5 maybe a couple of weeks ago, but him seeing what he is like the last couple of weeks and seeing kind of the vision for this Trailblazers team, he just kind of missed out there. And I think like maybe he's like on the board again. He's on the borderline, but I still think that he can still be a very like top 10, maybe top 10 to top 5 kind of like center in the league with the role he has in the Trailblazers. He just needs a bit more time, just to give it. But yeah, DeAndre Ayton, reasonable number 5 there for you. For myself, starting at number 5, got to go with Bradley Beal. I'm gonna have Bradley Beal over here. It's not just the fact that he hasn't been playing as much as you're hoping. I mean, like he started off the season like injured. Like we're finally getting a stretch where these 3 guys, Booker, Durant, and Beal, are finally like all playing together. By the way, like I think like just last week they eclipsed the amount of games Kyrie, Harden, and Durant
Yeah,
played
with
that
the
one season.
Nets.
So good for them.
Crazy.
But I have him at number 5 is just because you would expect with these three guys in your lineup that you like would have like near the top offense in the league. It doesn't mean that all of them have to be, their prod numbers. You're not going to get 30 point per game Bradley Beal. No one was expecting that coming into this year. No one was like, everyone was like expecting them to be like, Kevin Durant was still the main guy, but everyone was going to like get theirs. But they still haven't been like as dominant as they have like on the offensive end that even like I was expecting. They're like number 8th in offensive rating right now. Just this, like if you're looking just like the past like 2 weeks that they've been playing together, they've only been like outscoring their opponents by like 5 to 10 points, like when they're on the court together. So it hasn't been like this all-time great offense that we expected from the Phoenix Suns. And you just kind of maybe expect more from Bradley Beal because like Devin Booker still at 27 point per game scored. Kevin Durant still a borderline top 5 MVP candidate. Beal has been finally finding his groove. He's shooting 50% from the field, 38% from three, under 80% from free throw line, which could improve. But you just hope that there was something more coming from that third star, especially because you traded basically everything else you had left. Granted, it wasn't like a lot, but everything else you had left, all of your draft picks, everything, just to get this guy on your roster.
I think the most disappointing part about Bradley Beal is the fact that everything else, for the most part, is cracked the way they needed it to be. And it's shown that if they had just kept things as is for the most part, that they probably would have been able to operate in good faith. But I don't necessarily know if it's like all the way. Like I do think that there's an aspect of like moving off of DeAndre Ayton for new use of Nurkic. That trade is looking a lot better under these circumstances, especially because use of Nurkic wants to be there and is being productive versus DeAndre Ayton that didn't want to be there and is now proving in a different situation that's actually supposed to be more advantageous to him, that he still cannot be the level of he can still not provide the level of productivity you would need to go on a championship run. But they've got the main components down pat. Kevin Durant has been healthy and is super effective on both sides of the ball. Devin Booker, when healthy, has still been the best shooting guard in the NBA, next to probably like Anthony Edwards.
Donovan Mitchell up there too when he's healthy. He's like up there.
Yeah, sure. Donovan Mitchell as well. Yusuf Nurkic is playing as healthy Yusuf Nurkic, which was the biggest question mark when it came to their center position coming into this year. And the wing shooter in Grayson Allen has played up to a 38 to 39% three-point clip on high volume and has been able to, add a little bit of playmaking chops and things of that nature to really add a different dynamic to this team. So the only thing that isn't clicking is where the hell is Bradley Beal fit to make this team any better than what they have been? And so because that question is still a question we have in the freaking middle of March, you do have to wonder, like, even if the Suns make a decent run with Bradley this year, you do have to kind of look back at this year and wonder, like, yo, did they really just sell the farm for Bradley Beal just to be marginally better than they were before, despite the fact that they're adding a former All-Star? Like, that's a dangerous conversation to have to sit down and have, but I think it's a conversation they're really going to have to discuss unless they mess around and win the chip this year.
100%. Yeah, it's just unfortunate. And again, I don't want to like take injuries fully out of it because he has been injured for a lot of it. But again, you just expect that eventually when they got together that offense was going to be like as good, have like that, like at least be near the top of the league in terms of like, especially when they're together. But it just hasn't really been like that, and Bradley Beal kind of looks like lost in the shuffle sometimes because you feel like Grayson Allen is like having like more sort of an impact in his role, Yusuf Nurkic, and Bradley Beal is still trying to find his way, even though we're like approaching the end of the season. So yeah, I have him at my number 5. All right, Jay, number 4. I'll say mine. You say yours. Who do you have at number 4?
My number 4 is actually Captain Obvious. Mine's is Jordan Poole for 4.
Ooh, mine's Ben Simmons. But yeah, go ahead.
Understandable. I actually left Ben Simmons off this list entirely. Okay. Ben Simmons, for me, I just felt like he, with the games played thing, I'm just like, I don't even know how to consider it when you factor in like all the injury based reports. Like, is he disappointing because he's injured all the time, or like, I just didn't know how to quantify that. But for Jordan Poole, the reason why he's 4 to me in terms of like being above DeAndre Ayton in terms of being more disappointing is this is a real fall from grace, man. I mean, the punch round heard round the world really did start a significant downfall for Jordan Poole. But I think the hardest part about this season is that Jordan Poole has proven, he has now shown the league that his best role is coming off the bench. And that's something you hate as a young player in their 5th season that has made significant strides from their rookie year all the way to their 4th year in the NBA, have taken step after step after step every single year to become a much better player. During his current draft, man, there was an analyst when the Warriors took Jordan Poole that said he might be the worst draft pick in the entire draft. And he brought himself up to being one of the better young guards in the NBA 2 seasons ago. And here we are now, like, looking at him, and he's pegged himself as a guaranteed 6th man because that's been the only way he's been able to thrive on a Washington Wizards team they're literally derived of actual blue chip talent. Like, I like Denny Avdija. Kyle Kuzma's cool. I really like what Bilal Coulibaly brings to the table. I hate that he got injured to the point that his season's going to be over. But I really like what he brings to the table. But there's no real blue chip prospects on the Washington Wizards, yet here you are thriving in a role as a 6th man on this team. And now you know what you've done? You've told the rest of the league that's the only way that you can truly be a serviceable player long term. And that sucks to see that he brought himself all the way to the apex of being considered as one of the better 2 guards in the NBA. Not necessarily like a top 5 or anything, but you know what I mean? Top 15, 15 to 12 to 15, somewhere in there, especially with his youth, to now being a guy that, like, we're officially kind of out on, unless he's playing like the Jordan Clarkson, Lou Williams, Jamal Crawford-esque role. And there's nothing wrong with that, but this early in his career, for him to kind of been stuck stamping himself in that way, it sucks after seeing how much he climbed to the top and was able to help win the championship in Golden State and all those things like that.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I won't speak too much more on it just because he's going to be another entry on this list later. But yeah, just like super disappointing, especially because, like you mentioned, he works better off the bench. He's been like so much of like a better prospect for him when he's coming off the bench, and it's unfortunate because like you got the contract, you played such a huge role in that championship run for the Warriors. It's just not working out for you in the Wizards, and it doesn't look like a starting sort of role. It just feels like he's going to be like a forever Jordan Clarkson type player, forever sort of, Lou Williams, Jamal Crawford. And some people were hoping that he would be more than that, but unfortunately, he hasn't been. I'll speak quickly on Ben Simmons because, like you mentioned, it's the injuries. I think that's a lot of the disappointment. He hasn't just been able to be on the floor. And we were just hoping that maybe this is the year, after a full off season of recovery, rehab, that it's going to be finally the year where he can like start finally playing games. But then you see all those reports happening. You see that those talks about his agent not like saying, "Oh, I've handled this pretty badly," this and that. Like, it's just like disappointing all around because you want to see this guy on the floor. We know that we know that when he's healthy, that he provides sort of like a key role on a good team. It's just that whatever like went wrong during those recoveries is still catching up to him, and we're still not able to see him on the court. So that's why I still have him on this list. It's just disappointing that we haven't been able to see him play for long stretches.
Talent versus hype, man. Talent versus hype. We're at that point now where it's more theoretical than actual productivity, and that's what's really hurting Ben Simmons' stock right now. And I'm gonna be honest, I think it's gonna be hard pressed to like see him getting another NBA contract at this rate. Like, it's gonna be really tough to see.
Yeah. It's going to be one of those things where there's going to be like a team that takes a chance on him. He's finally going to get a good stretch of games, and then maybe he can earn a contract that way. But besides that, like, from someone who was a 3-time All-NBA, 3-time All-Star in his first 5 seasons in the league to where he is now was such a downfall for Grace. If you got to feel bad for the dude, you got to feel bad for the dude. All right, Jay, moving on to number 3. Who do you have? We're going to say again, both of ours, we're going to reveal it and we're going to talk about it. Who do you have at your number 3?
So number 3 is a current Warrior, actually, and the one I'm gonna go with is Andrew Wiggins.
Okay.
TV. That's right. That's right. You
okay.
go first.
Actually, I kind of cheated here just because I didn't know, like, I really viewed these guys at the same level. Both from the same team. I'm going to have both of them here occupy my number 3. It's
Okay.
Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins.
Oh wow. Okay, so you go first then.
Together.
Actually, you go
Klay Thompson,
first.
Andrew Wiggins. I go with Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins. I'm going to have them both at my number 3.
Okay.
And it's because this Warriors team, we talked about how last year, how, Wiggins getting that whole situation, the punch that kind of destroyed that year all around. There was a lot of excuses for them coming into the season. But seeing the Warriors now and them currently sitting at what? Are they at the number 9 seed in the West, I think?
Yeah, just barely above the
number 10.
I think actually,
number 10.
I think they're behind the Lakers now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're number 10 now in the West. And when you can point to the biggest problem of the Warriors being 2 of their core players from that championship team, it's just disappointing. Starting off with Andrew Wiggins, he without the top stars playing at their highest level, the fact that he has not been able to like fill a role at times, getting moved to the bench, is really disappointing for someone who we would consider the second most important player on that championship roster. We were having those conversations back then, and the fact that he is not reaching even near those levels when they need him to kind of step up in a big way, especially because Klay Thompson has been declining in production. Draymond Green missed quite a few games. You're hoping that Andrew Wiggins was going to step up, and he just hasn't been able to. You're going to probably go more into that a little bit after me, but his his role on this team has been really disappointing this year. And then Klay Thompson, I think we were all blinded by nostalgia for the longest time here with Klay Thompson, and now it's finally catching up to him. I'm glad he's finding a better role on the bench, but when you think of Klay Thompson, you think of the Warriors dynasty, the fact that the best plan of action at this point, when Draymond Green is still one of the most important, one of the best defenders in the league, most important players in the Warriors, Steph Curry is still playing an all-time level, to see Klay Thompson fall off to the point where his best role is best served on the bench, and even then he hasn't been at his absolute best, is really disappointing to see. So I would have to kind of put them sort of together. That's why I put kind of both of them here at number 3.
So I think the reason why I left Klay Thompson off of this list was because I think we always figured that the Warriors dynasty was going to come down as a slow but methodical, fall through demise. And I think it was bound to start with somebody. I believe many thought that the first person to fall would be Draymond Green.
Yeah.
I think if it weren't but due to his antics, it was just the fact that he already seemed to have been lining up post-career endeavors, signing with Turner Sports, starting the Draymond Green podcast, things of that nature, where you kind of thought that, he'd be stepping away from the game soon, and that would be one of the main catalysts to kind of the rest of it trickling down. Instead, Draymond Green has definitely had his druthers, but, it actually started with Jordan Poole, and then it slowly has moved over to the changing in the guard of what Klay Thompson has been able to provide for this team compared to what made him so great through those dynastic seasons.
Yeah.
And I just have not been able to put too much stock into it because I feel as though this is just something that you have to expect after a while. This team is old. Team is old. And that means that after a while, you're going to get spoiled and you're going to run out of gas. That's going to be what it is. And they can live off the druthers of Steph Curry still being, a top 10 player in the NBA all they want. But the talent around them is old, and the league has caught up to the play style that the Golden State Warriors have developed over the last couple of seasons, adopted it, adapted it, and it's something that I wouldn't say isn't dangerous, but they don't fear anybody on Golden State outside of Steph Curry anymore, and that's not something that could be said about them 3-4 years ago when they were taking over the league. And I think that this is just a part of it, is that some of their better guys, like a Draymond, like a Klay Thompson, like an Andrew Wiggins in this case, are not nearly as impactful as they've been in seasons past. But the reason why Andrew Wiggins actually was the guy I leaned with was because TV, we had a conversation, I believe it might have even been on your podcast once upon a time during their championship run.
Yeah.
I had asked you yo, is Andrew Wiggins the best two-way forward in the NBA with the performance that he put together on the run to the championship? And I meant specifically two-way, right? Because Kawhi Leonard is still one of the better defenders at the wing position, but he's taken a step back defensively. Paul George, same thing. There's a lot of one-way guys, but not nearly as elite on the offensive end, or there's a lot of one-way guys who are very strong on the offensive end, but not nearly as good on the defensive end when talking about the wing position. But Andrew Wiggins put together a full masterclass on both sides of the ball during the playoffs, where he was the Warriors' second best offensive player and easily their best defensive player, if not, second best next to Draymond Green. And
Yeah.
that was a real conversation that be had. Here we are 2 seasons later, and I don't even know if he's like top 10 at his position, let alone the best two-way wing or in conversation for one of the better two-way players in the NBA with the way this season is went. He's had the worst scoring productivity of his entire career, going back to even his rookie season with Minnesota. He's not shooting the three ball well. One of his worst of his career. Granted, he's been like a career 33 type of guy, 33, 35 guy, and he's at 35 right now. But the volume is the worst since his second year in the NBA, which is crazy considering how far the game has come since then. And specifically, Andrew Wiggins being more of a mid-range shooter when he first got to the NBA. The fact that he's kind of regressed back into being a low-frequency three-point shooter has really not only hurt him, but it's hurt the overall floor spacing of the Golden State Warriors. And not to mention, he's taking the least amount of shots total of his career this year. He's just overall stepped back in a significant way that has kind of returned him back to that guy where we just wonder, like, dude, how good are you? Because we've seen the peaks and valleys of what elite level Andrew Wiggins can be, yet here we are scratching our head again, wondering like, okay, but where is that guy at right now when the Golden State Warriors truly need him as they sit 10th in the Western Conference, basically staring at a win and get in situation?
It's so tough for that guy, man. Like we have there's even a conversation to be had if he's even like in the top like in the top 5 or 6 of most impactful Warriors. He's not even like in that conversation anymore,
Yeah.
which is absolutely unfortunate when like rookies like Pajemski and then you look at Trace Jackson Davis, all these guys like jumping him in terms of impact and like production right now, which is unfortunate, but it's the Andrew Wiggins peaks and valleys as we've learned through his entire career. It's just unfortunate when he's needed the most, when they kind of need that other guy to step up, especially with the regression of some of their starts, that he had to regress the most out of all of them. So yeah, that's unfortunate for Andrew Wiggins there. All right, moving on to number 2. Who do you got over there?
Number 2, I have Mikal Bridges.
Ooh.
And this one felt weird. But I can't wait to hear who your number 2 is, because I thought Mikal Bridges was actually kind of like out of pocket until I really started going down the list.
I was thinking about he's not on my list, I will say that, but he was in consideration.
Okay.
At number 2, I have Scoot Henderson.
Interesting. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first? That's interesting.
You can go first.
Okay, so the reason why I put Mikal Bridges here is because we already I had an inkling to an extent that Mikal Bridges' productivity for the Brooklyn Nets last season might have been potentially a little overstated, considering the fact that he got a boost in role in a set of circumstances where he was given the keys and was able to operate in a way where he could be the number 1 guy for the first time in his NBA career. So there were certain things that I expected in terms of taking a step back. More so, especially his scoring, which obviously he dropped from 26 points last year to 20.6 this year. But it's the fact that he's shooting the ball from 3 decently, but has regressed to a certain extent there. It's the fact that he's not getting to the free throw line nearly as much as he did last season. It's about the fact that he has taken a significant step back defensively this year, which that's more of a tale of the tape. This is one of those guys where I think I made my decision about him being on this most disappointed list for me based on what I've seen on the floor more so than his actual statistical regression. He has taken a step back defensively in favor of taking a more significant offensive role. We've seen that happen in the NBA time and time again. But the issue with this guy in particular is I think that many people wondered whether or not Mikal Bridges could be like a 1B on a championship team, or maybe a 2 on a championship possible situation. And I think this year has given us the proof that he is still a guy that falls more as a 2B or a number 3 kind of guy in a situation that we can maybe win with this guy as one of our best players, but he cannot be our best player. And one of the biggest signifiers for this actually for me was, why are the Brooklyn Nets one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA?
His defense has regressed so much.
It doesn't make sense. The Brooklyn Nets as a team almost went in the second spot for me because Nicholas Claxton was in DPOY conversation before getting injured last year. Dorian Finney-Smith, Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges. You go down the list. They had Royce O'Neal at one point. You go down the list, and with when you go and you look down their roster and you think about capable defensive wings, we joked about it before the season started. It seemed like they had all of them. They were one Jay Crowder away. They were one Jay Crowder and PJ Tucker away from basically having every top level 3-and-D wing you could think of in the NBA coming into the year. Yet they were and are one of the worst defensive units in the NBA. And it really doesn't add up when you look at the fact that your best player, who is supposed to kind of mold the identity of your team, has regressed defensively, and also the team's defense has also regressed part and parcel to that. That's not telling of good things. Now, Mikal Bridges may still be a magnet for a potential superstar down the line because it sounds like guys like the idea of playing with them and things of that nature. But if the Nets have to ride this out where he potentially has to kind of be their calling card, they're going to be in purgatory for a while. And I hate to put that on Mikal because I love him as a player. I don't love him in this position.
Yeah. The only reason I didn't have him here is because in my head and from what I've seen is that he was the victim of a number 3 being put into a bigger role, but him in that bigger role was never going to lead to any sort of team success. You know what I mean? I kind of already had that image in my head. It just this year compared to the last 2 years has been worse. But I just think this is just kind of like what having Mikal Bridges in number 1 is going to look like. And what's worse is that he was known as one of the best defenders in the league, and that is even taking a step back because he has to take such an offensive load for this Brooklyn Nets team. I want to see him get back to that all defensive level Mikal Bridges, but that's just not possible when you need as much offense as the Brooklyn Nets do. So that's the reason why I just couldn't put him on this list. Again, maybe disappointed to some because I don't know why. For some reason, I didn't agree with the conversations with him being a potential number 2 or 1B if you even went that far. But it's just you just hope that he would be in all-star conversations this year, I guess, and he wasn't even close to it. He was not even close to that level. Scoot Henderson for me. It's okay to still look at his potential and be like, you know what, he's gonna still have a chance to be a good player, but still be disappointed in the season he's having this year, because the fact that he is not even considered in the top 6 or 7 rookies that have played this year so far is disappointing. Because for the longest time, even leading up to the draft, people were like, oh man, this draft is stacked. Scoot Henderson and Victor Wembanyama. Looking at the last couple of years, if Scoot Henderson was in any of those other drafts, he would be the clear number 1. It's just he had to run into the alien and all that. But seeing the way he's played this year, the turnovers, the lack of a jump shot, sure, you can see some potential there. But the fact that he was supposed to be that guy to kind of be the Damian Lillard replacement, there in Portland, he just hasn't been that sort of rookie for them this year. That doesn't go to show that it's going to happen in a couple of years. Maybe he just needs extra time. Not all rookies are going to go the same path. Just look at Jarius Garland. He had a horrible rookie year, but then he turned out to be a all-star point guard. But just for this season alone, the way that they were comparing him to Wemby, comparing him to even just the top guys from the other draft classes, and we know how they ended up, like Anthony Edwards, like Cade Cunningham, they're just levels of just coming into the league, just levels above. It's just unfortunate to see Scoot just come in here and not even be mentioned among the top rookies whatsoever. You would even put guys like Podziemski. You would put guys like Jaime Jaquez clearly over Scoot. And I think that the fact that he is relegated to that sort of level as a rookie for me is really disappointing.
I think you definitely have to like really take that in consideration when you look at this. Like the injuries in his situation have definitely kind of hurt him. But again, you look at the entire class. Like, is Cason Wallace a more important player? Like as a
You can make an
rookie,
argument. That's an
right?
argument.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, but that's the thing. Like Cason Wallace, one of the later picks for the Oklahoma City Thunder, is a guy who actually might be playing much more valuable ball, not just because of the team he's playing on, but the play style in which he's been able to provide might be more productive to the eyes of others, including myself to an extent, than what we've seen from Scoot Henderson this year. You mentioned Brandon Podemski. He might get kudos in terms of the all rookie team just off of the fact that, I mean, he's been so productive that he usurped a guy who's going to be considered as a top 75 player.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? And that's not, that's no knock to Klay Thompson, but that goes to show you how impactful Brandon Pajemski has been able to be on this team for him to be able to usurp Klay in the lineup. So you go down the list and you think about the different kind of rookies that are eligible for an all rookie team, and you just wonder, like, who does Scoot knock off?
That's the thing. He might not even make an all rookie team, which is really tough.
Yeah.
Just quickly, before you even move on to number one, this is just some guys in this draft class.
Mhm.
Tell me for this season whether you would have him or Scoot. Just as a very quickly. Victor,
Okay. Victor,
Brandon Miller,
Brandon Miller.
Asar Thompson,
I would still take Asar.
Bilal Coulibaly.
That one's closer. I think I would lean Scoot, but Bilal showed some stuff this year that
Right.
would make that a real convo in year two.
Exactly. Cason
Yeah.
Wallace. We said there's going to be a conversation.
I think that's a convo. I think long term Scoot still, but Cason Wallace this year
season
easily has shown that he's got more translatable game right now.
Yeah. Derek Lively.
I think Derek Lively has been more productive. Yeah.
Derek Lively. Yeah. Jordan Hawkins.
Yeah, Jordan Hawkins is gonna be one of the best 3-point shooters in the NBA. Like
Keontae George. I'm taking Keontae.
Keontae might be first team all rookie this year, and it's not being talked about enough. Keontae has really stepped up as a starting guard for Utah, and I don't know if he solved their problem, but I think he's definitely given them something to think about. That's another thing. When you look at the Scoot Henderson situation, look at their guard group. Malcolm Brogdon, Anthony Simons, Shaden Sharp, Scoot. Scoot was supposed to bring in an influctuation of talent that was supposed to assert him as the number one guy amongst that group. He hasn't been able to do that. Keontae didn't have nearly as much resistance, but the one thing that was hurting them was that at the beginning of the year, Utah wanted to be good, which meant Keontae had to fight to get on the floor. But he fought his way to get on the floor, and it solidified himself as a starting point guard in a way that Scoot Henderson has kind of fluctuated in and out of the starting lineup. Keontae, watch out for him in the Jazz,
Keontae, I would have him for sure ahead of Scoot. Jaime Hawkins.
Definitely Jaime. Definitely Jaime.
Pajemski. I'm taking Pajemski.
Pajemski, yeah. This year, yeah.
Cam Whitmore, I'm taking.
I agree.
I'm taking Cam Whitmore. Even if we go to the second round, Trace Jackson Davis in terms of impact?
I think in terms of impact, you have a point, but I definitely think that Scoot Henderson brings something to the game. But I think at the end of the day, though, you're making a point that I think is super important. If we had to pick all rookie right now, think about how many guys you named, and you have to ask yourself, if I couldn't bump anybody off the list in favor of Scoot, or if there were many ties in there, there's only 2 teams for all rookie, correct?
Yes.
So there's only 10 guys.
And we didn't even talk about Chet, who's 100% going to make it.
Exactly. Now, I know we're not doing our all rookie teams today. Yeah. We're going to save that for, I think we're about 2 or 3 weeks away from that. But when that time comes, there is going to be a real conversation to be had. I think we just went down the list of a lot of the most viable candidates. We definitely named more than 10.
Yeah.
And he only maybe either came ahead of or tied with maybe 3 guys we talked about?
Yeah.
That still probably leaves at least the 10 that are going to make it. And like you said, we didn't mention Chet, which means one of those guys might have to even have to fall off because Chet's clearly going to be on it.
Yeah. I haven't even mentioned Marcus Sasser, but even though I'm taking Scoot, but Marcus Sasser deserves some conversation as well. But yeah, that's basically my point. And I think like just because the fact that we have to even have this conversation is like disappointing for Scoot this year. Again, potential is still there. We're still holding on to that potential. There's still a lot of room there, but as for the season, Scoot for me, just cannot It's definitely disappointed me, especially before like the amount of hype he's had coming into this year.
I get that.
Last but not least, let's go to the number one. I already said mine was Jordan. That means the number one left for me was Jordan Poole. Who did you have as your number one?
My number one was Jalen Green.
Jalen Green. Okay. Wow, Jalen Green. Okay, yeah, talk about yours very quickly. Talk about yours.
So Jalen Green, for me, the reason why he's the most disappointing player is because I think that the Rockets did exactly what they wanted to do by bringing in Fred VanVleet. But with that being the case, the biggest casualty of bringing in Fred VanVleet for the purpose that he serves, which I'll get into in a minute, is that I think Jalen Green has been exposed by his own team. And I hate to say that as it comes off as a negative connotation, but this is why I think that it's really important, especially if you're a Rockets fan. The purpose of bringing Fred VanVleet in, you have to look at the structure of his contract and how balloon payment it is and how that translates to what this team is trying to be down the line. We have to remember, there's a team option, not a player option, a team option on this very short. I think what's it, only 2 years, or I believe I believe it's 2 years with a team option for Fred VanVleet on this big old balloon payment that they gave him as one of the higher paid, free agent signings this past summer. The reason why he was so effective as a signing for this team is because Fred VanVleet, like one of my favorite point guards in the NBA that's not a superstar, Tyus Jones, he comes in as a steady hand that is able to keep a team organized and orchestrate an offense, actually orchestrate a defense as well, in a way that brings stability to a roster and highlights players' strengths and weaknesses. Another great player for this, Mike Conley from Minnesota. Very important to the Minnesota Timberwolves for the same purpose. But how important this shows up for Fred VanVleet. Guess what took place this year? We finally found out. Alper Sengun, you definitely are the guy. You are the number one. You are the dude we're building around. It doesn't matter who got drafted where. Alper Sengun is the guy. We play offense through you. Guess what? Guess what we learned about Jabari Smith Jr., who's been very under-discussed as a sophomore this year? He is a legitimate defensive menace at the power forward position. Legitimate defensive menace. When next to another guy like Fred VanVleet, who is a competitive perimeter defender. Cam Whitmore and Ben Thompson have both been able to thrive in their own way this rookie season in the open court offensively, and both of them have shown strides. More so Amen than Cam from a defensive standpoint. I think Amen has shown up more defensively. Cam Whitmore has shown up more offensively. It'd be interesting because actually if you fuse those two players together, it'd be a really OD two guard. But we can't do that, unfortunately. But those two guys, we learned a lot about. Dylan Brooks has been able to step into this role, and rather than being the shot chucker many people worried he was going to bring that personality from the Memphis Grizzlies, he has been able to step up on this team, be a good defensive wing, shoot the three ball at a high clip. There was a point where Dylan Brooks was shooting like 50% from three or high volume. Like we knew it was unsustainable, but it was the mere fact that he held that up for like a good 2.5 months that felt insane. But it was because of the fact that he was accepting of his role within this offense under Ime Udoka and Fred VanVleet at the helm. You know the only person who we have not seen progress in any way under these circumstances? Jalen Green. And that's why he's so disappointing, because now, dude, he was on the chopping block where he was considered as a real trade piece for Alex Caruso this year. That's where he is. And this is the guy who we're talking about is potentially going to be in rookie contract extensions this summer, I believe, is when he's eligible. And this is the conversation that we're having. That's why.
You know what? He really didn't yes, he was kind of there. So you know what? Someone who hasn't really improved. I wouldn't say I'm disappointed just because I've kind of felt this. I think we've felt this way about Jalen Green for a little while. How he's been kind of disappointing is the first couple years of his career. But the fact that the point that you made about him, everyone feels like they've improved in this new situation with Ime and these new veterans coming in, and the fact that he's plateaued kind of says a lot, and that's kind of disappointing in its own right. But honestly, this end of the season is going to be very important because after the Alperen Sengun injury, the Rockets have been kind of rolling still, and Jalen Green's starting to find that groove. The question is whether that's going to be translatable over to next year, and if this is going to work with Alperen Şengün. This fourth year coming up for Jalen Green is going to be super important. I wouldn't consider him disappointed because I feel like his entire career has been kind of disappointing insofar as his career, but I think that there's still room where there's a chance where he can still be like a cornerstone piece for this team. He just kind of has to get what he's like, bottle up what he's been doing these like last like week and a half or so, and kind of like be that type of player moving forward. Because I think that's the type of player that you want to have beside Şengün. Maybe there's still a lot of room for like there's still like a lot of like that's wrong with Jalen Green's game, but I still think that there's like a chance that he can be a long-term piece for the Houston Rockets. I'll quickly go through my number one just because we talked about Poole already. The fact that he's just not even a cornerstone piece for this Wizards team. If you're not a cornerstone piece for a Wizards team, we're not asking you to be the number one guy. We just hope that you were going to be a cornerstone piece, someone that they could build with the future. And the fact they're like, you know what? We're probably better off just like moving off of him. And he's like 24, 25 years old. Like
Crazy.
The fact that they're giving up on him, where you feel like they're giving up on him already, and they're like, he's probably best served as like a sixth man on a good team. That kind of just says a lot about Jordan Poole. And it's just like you just hope that maybe like going to a new situation after what happened last year that he would kind of recover for that. He hasn't recovered. He has not recovered from that Draymond Green punch, and it's just unfortunate to see.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I did my big soliloquy on Jordan Poole earlier, so I don't have too much more to add. But I think it's just, I mean, the fact that he serves better off the bench for this Wizards team, and they're one of the worst teams in the league, and not a single blue chip. Like at least Detroit has blue chip prospects. You just need to see them thrive. Washington, the only guy that we're even considering maybe in that department is probably Bilal, and he was coming in as a project. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like the mere fact that you don't have a real established blue chip prospect on your roster, and Jordan Poole still only can thrive against second units is a super telling thing.
Yeah.
To keep
100%.
like in mind. It's crazy.
It's very disappointing. That's why I have him at number one. Let us know down below if you guys, if we missed anyone, who are your top 5 most disappointing players. We're definitely missing some guys, and we definitely like talked about some guys that almost made our list. So we want to hear from you guys. All right, guys, we have our final few topics to go. But before we head into that, Jay, it's time to get.
Yeah, man, we got to start banging stuff out because this podcast is getting kind of long, and I was kind of dreading the fact that this was taking so long to get to this part, but here we are.
Okay, you know what? This is how we're gonna do it. Jay has a wheel over there. He's gonna spin it. He's gonna tell me which one to go with, and then we're gonna have one of each, and let's see if any of us get the bad one. So let's see, Jay. Joey Beach Challenge. We're gonna do this 3 times. Let's see what the first one is.
Lord be with me. Wait, my finger's in the way. Crap. Let me just put it down. All right, cool. So the first one that it landed on was actually the berry blue or toothpaste one. So not bad.
You know what? That's
not
a
terrible.
good. Could have been worse. We'll take it. Even if it's toothpaste, it's probably not the worst thing. Let's see how it goes. Got the blue one over here. Let's see.
Okay, I got berry blue. It's valid.
You know what? I got toothpaste, but toothpaste is actually not even that bad.
Okay.
I don't think it's even a horrible flavor. You know what? Toothpaste is a bad flavor. It's not even that bad. So, let's
just pray we keep getting that one.
Let's see.
I'm just kidding. Wait. Crap. This spinner sucks. Oh, crap. TV, here goes the one that you already test drived. Toasted marshmallow or stink bug. Jesus Christ. This is the one right here.
Oh, boy. Oh, can I even find it? It's the brownish one, right? Do I even have this on my thing? I'm trying to find... Oh, if there's one. I found one. What was it? This is it. Let's go.
I think mine is toasted marshmallow, but it still doesn't taste good.
Mine's definitely toasted marshmallow because I did not puke from stink bug. So we're getting off the hook. We're getting off the hook right now. We have one more to go, though. I haven't got a bad jelly bean yet. We haven't got a bad one yet. Let's see what this last one is. Get yourself
All
a little
right.
drink. Wash out the mouth.
Gotta get a little bit. Fudge.
What?
The last one. And we're gonna lean. Oh Jesus, yeah, we're gonna lean left because that's where it looks like it. So it's either cappuccino or liver and onions. So
Oh no!
neither one is great because I don't think either one is the move personally.
This is the one right here, just to show the little camera. This is what it looks like. Okay.
Nope, 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 nope.
It's cappuccino. Still not good. I actually want to spit this one out.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think I probably got cappuccino too, but I took about 2 chomps and it already didn't taste good.
Oh, no, it's not a great jelly bean flavor. You know what, Jay? For what it could have been, it's not the worst thing.
We definitely dodged a bullet because it was actually either the liver and onions one or it was buttered popcorn or rotten egg. That was the one we were in between. Thankfully, it leaned left, but man, that was dangerous.
Yeah. Look, man, we still have some jelly beans to go, so we might end up doing some more jelly bean challenges in the future.
We have plenty. So if you guys have more things in mind, come up with them. We kind of need to find a way to kill these off.
Yeah.
So yeah,
we got lucky today.
Not the most
we got lucky
enthusiastic.
today.
Yeah, definitely got lucky today.
Yeah, but still, it could be really bad. So yeah, that was our punishment. Honestly, my mouth feels even worse after the aftertaste of everything. So it kind of feels really bad.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah.
We're going to move on to the draft now, though. And it is time for the 2007 NBA draft.
Yeah.
Now, we know who's number 2 on this list, one of the greatest players of all time. But how is the rest of the team going to go? I'm not sure. Jay, how do you feel about this draft class that we have we have?
I'm going to be honest. This might be a little top heavy TV. We'll have to see.
It's going to be a little top heavy. But you know how this goes. Maybe we might switch up the order in the future ones, but we're going to keep it as is. Jay's going to get the first pick. I get the next 2. Jay gets the next 2. And, of course, we're going to go things serpentine style. Jay, we know where number 1 is. Just put me out of my misery.
Yeah, I'm going to be intelligent on this one and just be solid. I'm going to go with Kevin Durant, obviously.
Kevin Durant is off the board, as expected. All right, so you got Kevin Durant. Now it's time for me to kind of work my way around this draft. Funnily enough, my first guy I'm going to take off the board is actually in the second round.
Really?
I'm going to go with the Raptors starting center for a championship team, Big Spain himself, Marc Gasol.
Okay.
Marc Gasol is going to be my first pick here.
Not surprised.
And then my second pick. You're right. This is going to be top heavy. Jeez. I'm going to, you know what? Let's reform the Memphis duo. Let me bring in Mike Conley.
Damn it.
There's not a lot of great cards here, bro. So I got to take Mike. So I'm going to have him on the roster. So Mike Conley and Marc Gasol.
All right. So, I got to take – there's one player in particular that I have to take. And I'm going to go ahead and get out the way. We're going to go ahead at the center position. We're going to go ahead and get my boy Joakim Noah. Since we're getting former centers from our favorite teams, it only seems right that I put him at the center position.
Are you sure you don't want Aaron Gray? He played for both of our teams.
I do not think that's something that we like that we share in common.
But yeah, no, Joakim Noah, yeah, definitely a great pick.
And actually, this is kind of nasty, but at the same time, I'm kind of cool with it. Let's put him with his Florida teammate. Let me put my boy Al Horford at the 4.
Y'all team is big. Your team is big. Jeez. Okay. Do I have to counter that? I don't know, but those are some 2 good picks. You got basically all the good big men off the board. Great. Now it's me next. And at this position, you know what? There might not be a lot of top talent, but there's some damn good role players on this in this draft. But who am I gonna choose next? I am gonna go with. I need a wing to at least compete down there. So I'm gonna go with the guy who's one of the oldest guys in the league at this point, Uncle Jeff. Let's go with Jeff Green.
Dang it.
I'm gonna go with Jeff Green there, number 5 overall pick. And then I'm gonna go with. Oh boy, it's a tough bunch now, but I am also gonna go. So this gives me a bit more flexibility, and not gonna lie, this guy was pretty underrated back in his day. I think like he played a pretty good role. I'm gonna go wing heavy here. Kill me. I'm choosing between 2 Denver Nuggets. I don't know if you see them right now, but I'm choosing between 2 former Denver Nuggets.
Oh, please no, please no, please no. I'm praying
This
you don't.
I'm gonna go Aaron Aflalo. I'm gonna take Aflalo.
Oh, TV, you literally took my final 2 pieces, dude. Oh my god. I was trying to build a big body team and you took my last 2 guys and I still need a point guard and a 2 guard.
Oh, I gotta take Aaron Aflalo there. He was low key, especially like on the Nuggets and Magic team. He was pretty solid for those teams. So I'm gonna take at least like the more well rounded bunch.
This dude has Mike, and oh my gosh, man, this is where things get kind of rocky. Cause, okay, let's think.
Now
There's not enough to pull from. This second round is cooked, by the way.
You got a former most improved winner and another former Bull Jay. You got a chance.
Yeah, I think I might just have to do it. This is kind of nasty work, and I'm just gonna go for it. But my last 2 people are just gonna be Bulls because I'm a homer.
Yeah.
So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna take Aaron Brooks.
Yes.
At point guard. By the way, one of the craziest anomaly seasons ever, right? When he averaged freaking 19 points per game with the Rockets. That was crazy.
Yeah, that was crazy. He kicked Kyle Lowry out of town. He kicked Kyle Lowry out of Houston because of that.
And then actually now I'm debating between 2 guys because did he play for the Bulls? I know he played for the Rockets.
Oh.
The second guy, I'm gonna tell you who my other guy is later, but the guy I'm gonna take on my 2 guard, I'm actually gonna take Corey Brewer here.
Corey Brewer, okay. I don't think he played with the Bulls, but yeah, no, Corey Brewer.
Yeah, no, I know for sure he played with the Rockets. The guy I was thinking about to go next to him, I'll tell you later.
All right, my final pickup. You know what? This guy was put in the same graphic as LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, with the most cherry-picked stats of all time. Give me former Raptor, former Bull, Thaddeus Young to round out my roster. You always need a Thaddeus Johnson on your team, so I'm gonna have him as my final pick. Who was the guy that you were gonna miss out on?
Marco Bellinelli.
I was thinking, there's a lot of like former Raptors / Bulls here, damn, because even Bellinelli used to play for both of our teams.
What was it? Marco was here. Daquan Cook, I gave a cool little look at for a second. I ain't gonna lie. Rudy Fernandez, Roddy Stuckey. There were a couple of guys that were like worth giving. Nick Young, obviously, was like its own conversation. Second round for this year though. Jesus Christ.
Besides Mark, the fact that the second best player is probably Carl Landry is tough.
There's a dude in here at 51 named Jamison Curry where the O is uppercase.
Jameis on Curry.
Like, what is happening here in this second round, man? Adam Haluska, Jared Jordan, Herbert Hill. These are creative. DJ Strawberry. These are creative players, dude. Like, Jesus.
Yo, if you play freaking hoop grids, know these names. This is gonna get you a freaking high score.
Nah, for real.
Yeah. But yeah. No, that's the end of our draft class. Jay, who is your starting 5 from the 2007 draft class?
So my 2007 NBA draft class pickup is gonna be Aaron Brooks at the point guard position, Corey Brewer at the 2, Kevin Durant at the 3, Al Horford at the 4, and Joakim Noah at the 5.
Pretty solid lineup over there. For myself, got Mike Conley at the 1, Aaron Aflalo running my 2, Jeff Green at the 3, Thaddeus Young at the 4, and Big Spain himself, Marc Gasol at the 5. My team might be better all around, but you got Kevin Durant, so that could lead either way. Let us know down below whose team is better, Jay's or mine. I don't think I have anyone to guard Kevin Durant. My bad guy. I'm gonna have no one to guard him. But yeah, moving on to the final topic of the show. It's time for the quiz, and we're gonna continue because we have 20 cards left in this pack. We're gonna do the next 10. So I have the 10 cards in my hand here. Jay, I'm gonna describe them to you. Let's see if you're able to get them. All right. First guy. Oh boy, this is a tough start. I don't know anything about this guy. I've seen him once in my life, but I will try to get you to say his name. His first name is half of Outcast. Ah,
What?
you know,
Andre?
Andre. Okay, there you go. And then the second name is last year's Defensive Player of the Year winner. Like this, the second half.
Oh, Andre Jackson for the Bucks?
Yeah, Bucks. Yeah, I've seen him like once or twice, like here, but yeah, Andre Jackson's the first player.
Oh, he definitely doesn't play a lot, but I think he like whenever he gets in the game, he gets at least one good dunk. That'll
Yeah,
like
no,
let you know he was there.
No, he's athletic. That's the last thing. That's the only thing because I remember seeing him play like garbage time for the Bucks. He's athletic as hell. But yeah,
Yeah.
they can't really say much besides that. All right, second player. He is a solid backup for a team in La La Land.
Norman
Solid
Powell?
backup big.
Oh, backup big. Ooh, my bad. Um,
Athletic as hell. Another guy who's just super athletic.
Jackson Hayes.
Jackson Hayes.
Yeah.
There you go. And
You know, I
Pelicans
forgot
too.
he's on the Lakers, man. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah, I mean he's okay. I mean, I have to say, wasn't like what was that whole thing that he was like in trouble for a couple years ago? I forgot what it was, but he was like in like some big controversy. I forgot what that was.
I don't know, man. He was one of those players that I never thought was going to really fit in New Orleans unless he became like a Daniel Gafford type, and it
Yeah.
just never clicked. And that kind of was the only thing that I knew about the dude. Jackson
Fair.
Hayes came out of Texas, should have been a shot blocker like every Texas center ever, a la
Yeah.
freaking
Jared
like
Allen.
Jared Allen,
Yeah.
Mo Bambas, and all of those
Fair.
guys, and he just, I don't know,
Yeah.
man,
That's
hasn't
tough.
been able to do it.
That's tough. Damn, they're giving me some tough players here. All right,
Okay.
this guy is again from another player in Los Angeles.
Okay.
His name is like his first name is the same as probably the greatest Laker of all time, but he plays for the wrong team.
Is this Kareem Jackson?
Nope.
You know, I
No.
think it's a football player. Anyway.
Think of like some of the best Lakers of all time.
I mean, obviously, like there's like Irving Magic Johnson.
No,
Right?
not Magic. Go more current. We
Oh,
talked
go
about
more current.
yeah.
Is this Kobe Brown?
Yep, it's Kobe Brown.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Kobe Brown. How dare Kobe play for the other Lakers, man? The other LA team. How dare he? All right, here we go. This is another throwback card, but I wouldn't say it's much
He
of a
gave
throw.
you a Kobe Brown card. You might need to return this, TV.
Yeah.
What the
Oh,
hell?
ooh, oh. So this next card, it's a throwback card, but I don't know why they consider this a throwback card because he just played for this team last year, but he's one of the best guards in the league.
CP?
Nope, not CP.
James? James Harden?
Harden? Nope. Higher level.
Higher level?
Yeah, so like better than Harden, better than CP right now.
Oh, Dame?
Dame. They gave me a throwback Trailblazer card, even though he just
That's kind of wild. What the
that's
heck?
a wild one, bro. It's like
I mean, nice card, but like, why is that considered a throwback? I mean, Jesus.
ooh, this. Please tell me this is okay. This could be possibly the most valuable card in this pack. I hope I'm not trying to ruin it, but this looks like pretty sick.
Okay.
Um, Everyone knows him. Some people might even have him like already at like a top 15 player. Some people are having that conversation about this man already. Like
Top 15.
he's been playing like insane. Like he's been um he made a comment about Rudy Gobert the other day saying, you know what, he probably is going to win Rookie Defensive Player of the Year this year, but I got the rest. He can have it this year, but I'm going to take the rest after this.
Victor?
It's Victor. It's a rookie.
Victor rookie card? Okay, TV. I see you.
A Victor rookie card. I don't know how great this is, but whoo, this is looking nice.
It looks dope.
It looks dope. It's super shiny compared to the other ones too. You already know that this is gonna be like something down the line, but hopefully, pretty good. Next one, another rookie. So this is like a legitimate like rookie card, like it's like a future star type of card.
Okay.
We talked about him like he was one of the guys I mentioned like on the list that's like possibly better than Scoot, and you said he was absolutely better than Scoot this year.
Brandon Miller.
Go further down the draft. Like he's like outside the lottery. You said he's going to be the best at doing this. He's going to be the best at doing like this certain skill. He has a flamethrower on him.
Oh man! Shout out my boy Jordan Hawkins.
Jordan Hawkins, I love this.
That's design. A dope card. Wait a minute.
Right. That's a
clean card.
A clean Jordan. If he becomes like one of the better 3-point shooters of all time, this is looking nice. Jordan Hawkins arriving now card. Love that.
Man, I swear, dude, TV.
Yeah.
Between Anthony Black, man, of all people, between Anthony Black and Grady Dick, also one of the most hilarious jersey swaps in human history. But between Orlando and the Toronto Raptors, man, who both needed a 3-point shooter, man, Jordan Hawkins. And a redraft, I know they gotta be having second thoughts, dude.
He's good.
Jordan Hawkins is that guy. I really loved him out of UConn. And this year, man, 37, 38% 3-point clip, 7 attempts per game. Like, what the world?
Yeah.
Like,
he's good. He's really good. I'm excited to see what he's able to do. All right, next card. We talked about how this guy just made a new podcast as recently. He just came up with a new podcast. I definitely think
LeBron James card.
LeBron James card. Yeah.
Okay.
The Skyview card. LeBron James. Number 7.
Guys, check out the podcast, by the way. I haven't watched it yet, but by the time you guys listen to this, I'll have watched the first episode. Check out the podcast with LeBron James and JJ Redick, man. I'm sorry. I promote positivity in basketball. I'm not a LeBron James hater. I'm not a super Jordan fan, despite the fact that I am a Jordan guy.
Yeah.
I love the game. I love learning the game. Check out the podcast because everything I've heard about it, everything I've seen, really good stuff. If you want to learn actual stuff about basketball rather than just all the gossip and BS. This is definitely 100%. One of the better podcasts. 100%.
Yeah, 100%. I already told Jay before this podcast. The minute he gets like off or like, before he heads to bed last night to listen to it, it's some good stuff. It's some good stuff, man. All right, man. Another rookie card here next. This guy was probably like very early on in the season, top 3 in rookie of the year. Definitely has slipped off, but he is like going to be a key piece for this team going forward. One of the worst teams in the league, but he's definitely been a bright spot.
Damn, you said one of the worst teams in the league, and that threw me off because I was definitely thinking Jaime Jaquez.
No, one of the worst teams in the league. He definitely had like a strong start to the season. He's definitely fallen off a bit, but he's going to be a key piece for this team going forward.
That's got to be like what, Asar
Thompson, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Killing in the beginning. We was talking about him averaging 10 and 10 stuff when we first started. But the team's just too bad, man. He can't shoot yet.
He can't shoot.
His biggest thing coming into the league. He's still struggling with it.
He can't shoot. That's the problem. Hopefully that develops. But
yeah,
all-world defender already, man. All-world defender.
Facts.
Yeah. All right, next guy. Speaking of all-world defender, and speaking of NBA podcasts, this is like kind of the perfect guy to do both.
I'm dead. So that's the Draymond Green card. I'm crying. My man said perfect alley-oop into the next card.
All-world defense and NBA podcast. My man, Draymond Green.
That's hilarious.
That is fantastic. All right, final card here. Okay. Another rookie card. Again.
Oh, okay. I gotta really be up to date on my draft class with this.
Yeah. One. Again, I think this guy's could probably make all-NBA, all-rookie first team, in my opinion. I mean, like, he would definitely make it if it was, like, the old format where there's, like, center, forwards, stuff like that. But now that's, like, just 5 positions. It might be a little tougher, but I think he still makes an all-rookie team.
Interesting, because you mentioned that, so that means that it's probably like a deeper. So it means that, like, with center forward, it would be a little bit more broken up. Huh.
He's still been, we're probably like borderline top 5. You can maybe make the argument for top 5 rookie, but I wouldn't say he's like a top 5 rookie, but you can definitely like make an argument for that.
See, the first guy that comes up to mind for me like that might be like Derek Lively.
It is Derek Lively.
Okay, cool. That's dope.
Derek
That's
Lively.
dope. See, come on, man. I'm here, man.
Yeah,
I love this draft class, because this draft class in particular, a lot of guys that have come out in this group, there's not a lot of guys who have been like Victor or Chet level impact day one type dudes, but there's been a lot of guys who, like, you ask them to play, they produce, and they produce in a way that is effective and shows up right then and there, as opposed to a lot of guys having to kind of get strung along for a year or two before you start to see them play valuable minutes.
Yeah, no, honestly, outside of Chet and Victor, maybe you can throw Brandon Miller in the mix because he's been like really good his rookie season. But impact guys on really good teams, impact players on really good teams. When you look at Pajemski, Hawkes, Jordan Hawkins, Derek Lively, all those guys, very good, impactful players, good numbers on playoff contending teams. That's going to be key. So that's that's going to be there for the rookies. So yeah, those are the next 10 cards. That's done over there. We're going to have the next 10 coming on Thursday. That's the final 10. We got some really good ones here. The Wemby rookie card. You got the Jordan Hawkins up next card, which is super cool.
Man.
But yeah, you got some good ones here. But yeah, we're going to go to the final 10 on the next episode. But yeah, Jay, we reached the end of an episode. Thank you all for watching. What do you have to tell these people before we sign out?
Push to the playoffs. I say it every single episode now that we're in March, man. Push to the playoffs. It's going to be a lot more uploads because of the fact that we're getting closer to the postseason. We plan on trying to break down each and every series as we get into the postseason. Obviously, postseason basketball is where we get elite top tier, on the court productivity. So that means that we have to give you guys elite top tier podcast productivity, which means we're going to have a lot more episodes, a lot more stuff on the social medias. And, yeah, man. I mean, we're locked in. We're locked in.
And look, you thought you were going to miss an episode from last week and we're only going to give you one this week. No. We have one. This is coming on Wednesday. We got one coming on Saturday. So be on the lookout for that as well. It's going to be a great episode. We're going to finish off with the pack. A lot of other stuff to be talked about too. So it's going to be a damn good episode. But yeah, this is the end of another episode. Thank you guys for watching. Remember to check out our personals down below. Routine Jumper TV on basketball. Check out Hit Your Free Throws on TikTok, Instagram, the podcast networks, YouTube, and all that. That would be highly appreciated. Appreciate all of you guys' support. But this is the end of the episode. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you all have a fantastic day. This is TV. This is Jay signing out. Peace.